favorites. Hi, can you hear me if I don't stand behind this?
Yes.
Because I feel like a minister if I stand behind it. I don't want to preach at you. Just to get this out of the way right away, if you don't know, if we haven't had this conversation before, there's another Don Winslow that writes novels. He writes porn novels. And that's not me.
Oh man!
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not signing that for you, sir. I wrote Savages, I wrote Power of the Dog, I wrote The Winter Frankie Machine. I did not write Slave Girls of Rome, Katrina in Charge, or Ironwood. Don't you laugh. 1 through 9. The continuing saga of a private boarding school for girls. Didn't write any of those books. The other Don Winslow, his name's not Don Winslow. Out of all the lousy gin joints in all the world, he had to pick my real name for his gnome to porn, you know. He lives in Philadelphia. He's 83 years old. And I know. I occasionally go on the Philadelphia Inquirer website obituary section. Hopefully, which I know is wrong. So anyway, that's not me, but if you go on, dare I say it here, Amazon.com or one of those services that, you know, none of us ever go on, you'll see like 38 titles, so most of them are not mine. That's not here. This one, Savages, is, let me tell you a little bit about the origin of this book, if that's what you want me to do.
Whatever you want. It's your
If
show.
not, just stop me and I'll talk about something else, you know, porn or something. Find more interesting, but not you guys. That would be bad. This guy makes me the best hamburgers in the world. So. Did you bring me anything, dude? No, okay. I haven't eaten, so it's okay. It's all right. Jeff's Burgers, you know, down in La Jolla Shores. Major hangout for me. Savages, well, if any of you have followed my so-called career, you might notice that this book is by a different publisher than I've had the last 13 years. I've been with Knopf, and this is by Simon & Schuster, and this is how it happened. And I'll tell you this I hope, interesting tale by way of explaining the origin of Savages and the origin, in fact, of the first chapter of the book. I had written a book called The Dawn Patrol, which you were kind enough to have me here for, and I think I recognize a few faces. It's about surfers down at Pacific Beach. And it went well, and the publisher Knopf and the British publisher Random House asked me, you know, write a sequel to that right away. We need a sequel to that right away. And I said, yeah, because I think I'm going to write 6 of those. I have an idea about the arc of that whole story. And so I wrote a book called The Gentleman's Hour, which is the next sort of segment of the surfing day, the Dawn Patrol, The Gentleman's Hour, and I did the whole thing on it. We went right down to that anal retentive copy editing phase, you know, the typos and everything, and I sent it in on time, and I never heard from Knopf again. Thank you for gasping. I don't know who did that, but that's... Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
I'm feeling for you.
Thank you. Yeah, because not a note, not an email, not a phone call, not a carrier pigeon, nothing. And then I heard sort of roundabout through my literary agent that they didn't intend to publish it until the summer of 2011, which would have left me with almost a 3-year gap between 2 books that are sequels. And then they own not only Gentleman's Hour, but my next 2 unwritten novels. And so I had a year or so on my hands. You know, I never had a year or so on my hands before. I wasn't quite sure what to do or what to think about this. But I sat down to write my next novel, and thinking about my publisher at Knopf, the 2 words came out of my head. One of them was you. The other wasn't. But I thought, well, I'll give you a novel you won't publish, you know. Let's see how this goes. But then I got thinking about it, oddly enough. I know this is an odd beginning for a book. But I got thinking, well, what about it? No, quite seriously, what if I took that kind of nasty, snarky, rebellious attitude and really followed it through? What would that book look like? And I have to tell you, this is bad, Seth, but I had this image of a reader at like Borders or some bookstore that would pick that off the shelf and go, And I want to know what they do. You know, would they get angry and shove
Amazon.
it back, or would they say, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. I want to see who this crazy person is." And then right around that time, I was visiting my agent in New York, talking about what do we do now, you know, and he said, "I got to show you an email that came across my desk this morning, and it's the precipitating incident in the book Savages of 7 severed heads." If any of you have read some of the book, the video clip that features prominently in the first 20 pages or so is actually real and actually occurred. And so I took these two kind of thoughts and thought, what about it? Who is saying F you? Who has this kind of attitude? And I don't know, and I just started to write about these two guys in Laguna Beach who have a very high-end, high demographic marijuana business, and what happens to them. And what happens to them, and then I'm, oddly enough, I don't know how these things work, I really don't, but in my head, it was a woman telling the story for most of it. I just had, I don't know, she just started talking about her friend Sean, who has this FU attitude. I can't explain it, don't ask me, I don't want to shine too bright a light on how that happens for fear of killing it, you know. But, and then the book just sort of took off. I wrote 80 pages of it, and I sent it to my agent, and what I expected to get was the email saying, "Okay, you've had your fun, now get serious, you know, this is career suicide, you know, write a real book." I never expected anyone to like these pages, and he loved them, and he passed them on to the president of Simon & Schuster. And I guess he did that in the afternoon, and apparently at 2 o'clock the following morning he got an email from the guy at Simon & Schuster saying, I have to have this book. And so my wife Jean and I, sitting over here, we're on our way to Rhode Island, I guess at that time, and near New York City, and in our car. And he said, "Can you come have lunch with the guy from Simon & Schuster, David Rosenthal?" And I said, "Yeah, we're actually in New Jersey, yes, we can." And we had this very secret lunch because I'm still under contract to another publisher. And Rosenthal came in, and is this at all interesting to you guys?
Oh, yes.
This is just inside publishing stuff. But he came in and he shook my hand because I never met him. And he said, "These are the best pages I've read in 5 years. Let's publish it right away."
Wow.
I know, but I said, "Well, there's a couple of problems, David. One, you've read 80 pages and I have no idea what happens on page 81. And two, not only, you know, it's owned by another publisher, and so am I for the foreseeable future." And Rosenthal said, "Well, I'll tell you what, you deal with the first problem, I'll deal with the second. And when can you finish the book?" And I said, this was late June, and I said, "October." And I pulled that out of the air because I'm stupid, you know, and cocky. And I met October 31st. It turned out they met October 1. If you're writing a book, that's a big difference, by the way.